What made the world's largest land empires? Let's go back to 1450 through 1750. During this period, the use of gunpowder, cannons, and armed trade were at the center of what it took to build an empire. Empires such as the Manchu, Mughal, Ottoman, and Safavids used gunpowder and cannons to spread their control across vast territories in Asia, Europe, and North Africa. But it wasn't just military might that expanded these empires. Advancements in navigation like the astrolabe and compass and agricultural techniques like crop rotation and terracing sustained and extended their reach. Military advances made the wildest moments, though. The Ottomans utilized advanced artillery techniques in the siege of Constantinople in 1453, which was vital in their capture of the city, and their rise and the fall of the Byzantine Empire, the end of the Eastern Roman Empire, to the Turks. How did these empires manage to grow so large and powerful, though? One key strategy was to recruit and develop bureaucratic elites and military professionals. These groups helped rulers maintain tight control over their territories and resources. For instance, the Ottomans had a unique system called dev-shirme, where they recruited boys from conquered Christian lands to be trained as soldiers or administrators. In Japan, the samurai became salaried warriors who played a similar role. These professionals not only managed military campaigns, but also allowed the administration of vast and diverse populations. What was used to sway those populations? Rulers used religious ideas, art, and monumental architecture to strengthen their rule. For example, the Qing dynasty in China commissioned grand imperial portraits, while the Mughal emperors in India built beautiful mosques and mausoleums like those seen in their capital, particularly the iconic Taj Mahal, which was completed in 1643 as a monument of love and an example of Mughal architectural sophistication. This was insanely costly, however. To fund their expansive endeavors, empires developed innovative tax collection systems. The Mughals used zamindars, or rich, frequently Hindu, landowners to collect taxes, even though they were Muslims. The Ottomans implemented tax farming, where they sold tax collector jobs, and the Mexica, or Aztecs, maintained detailed tribute lists of special goods that tributaries had to provide to avoid sacrifices. These systems were required to generate the revenue necessary to support military campaigns and governmental administration. However, they also impacted local economies and restructured traditional land ownership and labor practices. Corruption arose and required management, but economics and religions helped. The economic changes brought about by these empires included the creation of new markets, the establishment of monopolistic trade practices, and the exploitation of natural resources, which affected regional economies over the long term. The period also saw massive religious transformations. The Protestant Reformation in Europe marked an enormous shift in Christianity, while the rivalry between the Sunni Ottoman and the Shia Safavid empires deepened religious sect divides within Islam. In South Asia, Sikhism emerged, which blended elements of Hinduism and Islam. These religious changes were both a cause and a consequence of empire building, as rulers used religious policies to reinforce their rule, and religious conflicts sometimes led to wars or reforms. The role of disease and demography was another critical factor. The arrival of Europeans brought diseases to the Americas, which devastated indigenous populations and caused dramatic demographic shifts. This not only weakened the resistance against colonizers, but also transformed the ecological and social landscapes of the conquered territories. For example, smallpox reduced the indigenous population in the Americas by up to 80 and 90% in some locations, which made Spanish conquest and colonization easier. The expansion of these empires also led to environmental changes. Deforestation to clear land for agriculture and urban development was common, which altered local ecosystems and biodiversity. These changes had long-term impacts on the environment, some of which are still felt today. In the Amazon rainforest, large swaths were cleared for agriculture by the Portuguese and Spanish empires. Throughout the period, there were instances of resistance and rebellions by indigenous and local populations against imperial authorities. These movements were started by dissatisfaction with policies that disrupted traditional ways of life, excessive taxation, or the harsh enforcement of law. For example, The Pueblo Revolt of 1680 against Spanish rule in North America was a notable resistance event, where indigenous groups successfully expelled the Spanish for over a decade. The interaction between different cultures under these empires led to significant cultural syncretism, where distinct cultural practices and beliefs merged to form new traditions. For example, in the Americas, the blending of indigenous beliefs with European Christianity created unique religious practices that continue to influence cultural identities today. Voodoo and Santeria are examples of this. The Virgin of Guadalupe in Mexico is another symbol of this blend, combining elements of Aztec and Spanish religious traditions. How did these empires increase their global influence? The meeting of the Eastern and Western hemispheres, made possible by transoceanic voyages, changed trade forever and impacted society all over the world. This era of connectivity supported not only the spread of empires, but also the exchange of religious and cultural ideas, sometimes which led to conflict, and at other times to the combination of beliefs and practices. As we journeyed through the formation and expansion of these empires, did you notice anything unusual about how they maintained control and influence? Here's the twist. While they all wielded immense power through force and administration, their most enduring influences were cultural and religious, shaping societies in ways that outlasted their political and military dominance. The technological and economic strategies they employed not only supported their military efforts, but also influenced the everyday lives of millions, which shapes the modern world in profound ways. The severe impact on indigenous populations through disease and demographic changes, along with significant environmental alterations and cultural syncretism, reveals a darker side to this historical narrative, which shows the complex and often tragic consequences of empire building. Will new empires be built? Which empire would you bring back? Tell us in the comments, like the video, and subscribe for more AP History.